Hey, cheers this morning, guys. This is Monday Morning Marketing and Coffee with Tim Brown, your favorite Facebook Live guy on Monday mornings. So I'm excited to talk with you today about my top 5 favorite business books. So one thing you should know about this is I have a list of books, but I didn't prepare that much. I like these books, and I'm essentially, I've read them and I've metabolized them and I've thought through them. So I don't like sit down and prepare a script for this thing, but I do want to give you guys what these 5 favorite business books are and talk through some of their key points. So a lot of them have the same theme, which is essentially figuring out how to bootstrap a business. But the first one that I really, really like is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So one of my favorite things about this book is he talks a lot about ideating business ideas by doing actual tests. So for instance, you could if you have a really good startup idea, creating a landing page and actually sending paid traffic to it, whether it's Facebook traffic or Google traffic, and essentially in that way allowing your ideation to figure out if it has like and then figuring out if it works, but rather ways to efficiently figure out if the business has demand, which I really, really like. And he talks a lot about automating things, delegating things, and using VAs or virtual assistants to get work done, which is, I think he's got a very intelligent way of doing startup mode for businesses. The title itself, The 4-Hour Workweek, I think is it's like almost like a book version of clickbait. So people might not read it just because it sounds like spammy or something like that, but it's a really good book. The second book, number 2 out of my 5 favorite business books, is The Lean Startup. So this comes from the concept of lean manufacturing from Asia. So it's a way of figuring out how to very quickly ideate and churn out work before creating all of the systems to create it at a mass scale. So that's lean manufacturing. Lean startup, essentially it's around this concept of, it's best described with a story, which is the story of a teacher who said to his students, here's a assignment. You either have to do 1 pot for the entire semester, or you can do 50 pounds of pots. And for he measured the poundage at the end of the semester, and a good amount of people would do let's perfect 1 pot, and some people just want to churn out work. So the point is when he gets done with the end of the semester, the student who did 50 pounds of pots actually went through the process so many times of starting and ending a pot that their end product was actually better than the person who just sat there and perfected the pot over and over and over again. So that process of starting and ending something over and over and over again versus just perfecting one thing is going to lead to a better familiarization with the process of creating a pot, and is going to lead to a better end product. So that's kind of like it's an anecdote to just say volume sometimes makes you better, and creating at volume makes you better. So I really love that story from The Lean Startup. The third book, my third favorite business book, is and actually these aren't in order, so it's just top 5, but Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. So I feel like I sometimes have to caveat when I talk about Steve Jobs, but because he was kind of what do you say? What's the Facebook Live version of this? who's not always nice to the people that he worked with and for. So Steve Jobs, the principles that led to his success and his mindset are extremely valuable. And figuring out what those principles were that led to his success, to me, has been very helpful. So there's this thought process about Steve Jobs, and it's like, he's an individual who innovated a lot, but he also innovated on the way that he went to market with products, not just on the products themselves, which it was very design focused. So in that way, I resonate with it, but just the way that he brought those products to market. So, before he died, his presentation skills and his making an event when he revealed a new product and things like that. I think reading real life biographies of people who were amazing at marketing and amazing at product design is extremely telling, just to figure out like what were their daily lives like, what were their habits, and what were the environmental factors that led to them really doing amazing work. This is probably one of my biggest ones. These last two are my biggest out of these 5, I think. So number 4, the E-Myth Revisited. So the E-Myth Revisited is extremely, extremely smart in the way it talks about, franchise model would be. And even if you're not going to do a franchise, even if you're not going to franchise your business, it is extremely valuable to think about your business as if it was a franchise and to try to create the systems that you could hand off. Because even if it's just a single business owner going to a 2-person business or 3-person business, that franchise model will really help that second and third person be able to do some of the things that the original creator of the business was doing originally. So the point is, the E-Myth Revisited is really about creating a franchise model. It tells a ton of stories about, entrepreneurship and creating this model that's reproducible. And I love, love, love that book. And then my last top 5 favorite business book is Traction by Gino Wickman. Now, normally I like to wait a little while after reading a book before putting it on my top 5 or top 10 list because, normally like once I finish a book, if it was good, it's like, it's my current favorite. Do you know what I mean? You just finished it, so you're just excited about it. And you're like, oh, have you read this book? And it's just something that you're reading right now. So I like to wait a little while before I add it to my favorites list. But this one I read fairly recently, and it's extremely good. It's really just about creating traction in your business. I guess that's the name of it. So, but it's about taking like the 10 to 20, I think it's actually 20 most important factors and getting them out onto paper so that you can share them with the other people in the business. And by showing vision, and some of these are kind of old school concepts, but I think they're important. The vision, the mission, the key differentiating features, getting really clear about these things, the prime demographic, getting those onto one piece of paper and essentially being able to show and share that with people and how valuable that is to be able to have, osmosis between people in the business and to have, clarity on direction. And what he puts forward in that book is that if you have clarity on direction and target and mission and vision, that it's a lot easier to get traction. So it's a lot easier to get moving forward more quickly in an efficient way. And I guess it all sounds like, as I'm saying it all sounds like super basic stuff. But I think, I tried reading this book about 3 years ago when I wasn't doing my own business. And I was just like, I don't, and I'm trying to get a grip on that. This book really made a lot of sense to me. So I think sometimes books relate to your your context, and trying to make sure you're reading books that you can use soon is important. So, going back to my first favorite book, the author Timothy Ferriss, he talks about reading books for just-in-time knowledge rather than just-in-case knowledge. And I think that was a big shift for me. Rather than reading something that I want to showcase my own intelligence at a dinner party or something like that, trying to read books that will help me like next week or this week. So reading stuff that's really going to be useful to you now versus reading stuff that you'll just get this, brain twice the size of your body. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in for my Monday morning marketing and coffee favorite business books edition. And once again, I'm going to give you those 5 favorite books. Number 1, not in order, by the way, The 4-Hour Workweek, Lean Startup, Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, it's a biography, E-Myth Revisited, and Traction by Gino Wickman. All super, super good books. And I don't know, I'm not trying to brag, but I saw last year I read 52 books. This year I'm on track to read 26 books. So I kind of cut it in half. But I'm not just saying the last 5 books that I read. I've read a lot of books. And, some would argue I should be smarter for reading that many books. But, there's a lot to think about with running a small business. And sometimes a book is just that thing that you needed to really kick it into high gear and to push for the next week. So my suggestion is that just-in-time knowledge versus the just-in-case knowledge. And thank you, Emily. Appreciate everyone for joining me and everyone that watches this later for taking the time. And my normal sign off is always find something about what you do that you love doing and do a little bit more of that this week. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. All right, bye.